Hello, and welcome to Authors Amplified. I'm your host, Stephanie O'Neill. My show is a part of the Amplified Podcast Network, where ideas echo and voices resonate. With over 20 years at Christian Television Network, I've had the privilege of meeting countless talented and spiritual individuals, and it's too inspiring not to share. I'm just a girl who loves Jesus wholeheartedly. I'm eager to learn and grow, and I'd like you to join me on this journey. In each episode, I'll be speaking with Christian authors who will share their stories and insights about the books they've written. I'm thrilled to have you with us, so let's get started. Welcome to Authors Amplified. This is such a good one today. You're going to want to stay with us, get yourself a cup of tea, and you're going to want to sit down and enjoy listening to our author about her book. The title of the book makes me giggle. The author is Jessica Kate, and the title of the book is Why Are All My Boyfriends Fictional? Joy for the Relationally Challenged. So welcome, Jessica.
G'day, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yep, enjoying summer over here in Australia.
I was to say, coming all the way from Australia. So exciting. So the
Yep.
book. Well, first let's hear a little bit about you so the listeners know who they're listening to. Tell us a little bit about you, Jessica.
Sure. Well, I am a fellow single lady. I am 34 years old, and this is not what I had planned for my life. And so, yeah, I wrote a book about it, which was good fun. But I work full time as well. I'm a rom-com author. That's my first love when it comes to books, is romantic comedies. And now I'm super excited to bring that sense of fun into a devotional that tackles something that's both really hard and also really joyful.
Yeah, and I love that you bring that humor and that fun into it because we need to bring that into everything, really.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what specifically sets this book apart from other books for single Christian women?
I think that a lot of the books out there for single Christian women are really aimed at women who are under 25 and they're preparing to enter the dating world, or they've started it and they want to learn how to do it well, which is great. We need that. But I couldn't find a lot of resources for somebody like me who wants to be married, wants to have children, hasn't gotten there yet, and is a little surprised at how life has turned out, and is really just looking for some encouragement, some joy, some reassurance that I'm not the only one. And so I was really excited about writing this first and foremost for myself. I knew my future self would need these lessons that I'd learned. And then getting the opportunity to share it with others was so exciting.
Yeah, it's always good to know that you're not alone because when you're going through something, and it could be anything, you always feel like I'm the only one that's dealing with this. So it's so
Mhm.
wonderful to know you're not alone. There are others. You can have joy through it all.
Mhm.
And I think that's great that you can bring that into that. So, as a romance writer, what drew you out of fiction and into the real lives of women and the relationships?
The contrast between my life and the books that I was writing was getting increasingly funny. I was very single for two and a half of the three romance books I had done at that point. And then during the development of one of them, became single again. You know, went through a breakup of a serious relationship, which was a surprise at the time and was really hard to deal with for a number of reasons. There was all sorts of things happening in my life. It was back during COVID as well,
Mm.
so there was multiple layers going on, and it was a really tough time. And so when God really taught me a lot of things about joy through that time, I knew I need to write this down because I'm going to forget and something hard's going to happen again, and I'm going to have lost all this knowledge. And I don't want to go through something hard again without all these great things that He's taught me. So that really led to me just feeling like I've got to get this on paper.
Right. There's so many things that now that you said that going on during COVID that some of us wouldn't have thought of, like the dating life had to have been crazy awful during COVID, because you couldn't go anywhere, you
Yep.
couldn't do anything. So that's not something I would have thought of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly had its challenges.
Yeah. what is the greatest, and I love the joy, I love joy because that's not our emotions. That's joy comes from the Lord. So what is the greatest joy you've discovered in being single?
Mm-hmm. I think that, first of all, there's so many joys, and such a big part of my journey has been learning to really appreciate each of the joys that are in front of me and focusing on the ones I do have rather than the ones I would like to have but don't
Mhm.
right now. So that's been a big part. But if I had to pick my favorite, it's the amount that I've been able to be involved in the rest of my family as a single woman. In the last 5 years, there's been a lot of major events, saying goodbye to my nana,
Mm.
then welcoming a new member of the family at my grandfather's wedding a few years later.
Oh,
So
wow.
whole spectrum of things like that that were really meaningful events, a lot of other family weddings and major birthdays. And I haven't missed any of those. I have nieces and nephews I'm very involved with. I have a much younger sister who I'm very involved with. And I have a sister who's married and she missed most of that. She
Yep.
was pregnant and couldn't travel. She had little kids. She wasn't able to be at a lot of those events. And so I was really able to appreciate at the time, you know what, I'd love to have what she has, but I'm really glad I'm at this party. And I'm really glad that, I had that last conversation with my nana and I was at the wedding later on and things like that. So that's one that I've really appreciated.
And that could totally change somebody's perspective who's only looking at the negative of being
Hmm.
single. There could be so
Hmm.
many positives that you do
Hmm.
get to travel, you do get to do all of the things you want. You don't have to ask anybody.
Hmm. I just go.
That's wonderful. How do you perk yourself up when you're feeling down about life not looking the way you thought it would in terms of relationships or even other life goals?
Yeah, I love this because it's such a practical question. I'm such a practical person, and the book is full of each devotional has a little concrete action you take at the end of each day to help build your joy that day. And throughout the book, we create what I call a break in case of emergency list. And so any day when you're struggling, and look, I've had about three of them this week alone,
Oh.
I bust out my list. I'm like, rightio, I'm not feeling great. What are some things that can help turn this around? And it's got things on it like worship music, like choosing gratitude, but also practical things like go sweat, have some exercise, pair it with worship music if you want a really supercharged boost, because
Hmm.
we have physical bodies. We need to make sure that they're taken care of, and we need to set them up for success when it comes to feeling emotions. Emotions aren't just mental, they're physical, they're spiritual, there's a whole range of things. So I take people through the list and looking at all the different ways that you can set yourself up to build habits that will cultivate more and more joy over time.
Right. I love that about the book because I think writing things down sometimes is very important
Hmm.
because you forget. And
Hmm.
even last week, like something great will happen last week, but if you're in the pit this week, you've completely forgotten about that. So I think it's
Hmm.
wonderful to write things down. So I love that about the book. There's take action, there's stories in there. I like that part. That's amazing. I'm sorry, who is a modern single role model that you look up to?
I love the fact that Annie F. Downs exists. She's so encouraging in her podcast and things that she has out there. So that's wonderful. Just knowing that there's someone out there who's a little further down the road than you are, and they are not in a circumstance that they necessarily wanted. She's pretty open about that, but she's also thriving in what God has given her. So that I believe that the Bible study author Kelly Minter is single as well. And while she doesn't really write explicitly about it, again, just knowing she's out there, she's living her life, she's serving God joyfully. It's so encouraging just to know that someone's out there and doing that.
Right, right. So you talk about aligning with God's view on singleness. What is God's
Mhm.
view on singleness?
I think when you dig into what the Bible actually says about singleness, it is a delightful surprise to see what tremendously high regard God has for singleness and his singles. There are several passages, 1 Corinthians 7 focuses on it very heavily. Jesus also mentions it in Matthew 19. It's also mentioned in Isaiah 56. And each time they really talk about God, seeing singles, valuing them, and having a purposeful place for them in the community. You know, if God wanted everybody married, then everybody would be married. But
Right.
he wanted some single people in his church, and he
Mhm.
has a place there for it. And he really makes that very clear in those passages. And so sometimes in our culture, you know, things are always a bit out of kilter. We're flawed people, and sometimes things can be weighted towards valuing marriage a lot more. And then you
Mhm.
read this and you realize, you know what? God loves both lifestyles as long as he's number one in your heart.
Right. That's so true. And if we have any, leaders, church leaders listening, don't forget your singles. And don't forget a lot of times they'll focus on the young singles, but you
Mm.
have older
hmm
singles, you have widows or people who have never been married who also need to be included in somewhere. So let's not forget them.
Very much. And the numbers are growing. You know, there is really interesting research coming out about the trends since, you know, going back as far as the 90s and maybe even beyond that. This is a group of people that is growing. And when you add up those young singles, maybe more middle singles, you're getting towards your folks who are widowed or divorced or never married, then it's actually a really surprisingly large portion of your church. I know even after writing the book, I looked up some stats and was really surprised how big, you know, Pew Research and other groups like that were saying this demographic was. So
Yeah,
definitely to keep remembering.
especially because unfortunately the divorce rate is so high. Those people
Mm.
somewhere to be
hmm
connected in.
Very much. And never marrieds is a really rapidly growing group too.
I
And
am
so,
finding that more often, yes.
very
Because
much.
back
And
in the
it's
day, it
something
used to be
to
everyone just got married when they turned 18. They got out of high school, they got married, they started having kids, and boy, it's not like
Mhm.
that now.
It's not, no, it's very different. And church leadership hasn't had to deal with that before. So it's a learning experience for all of us.
Right, right. So our enemy wants to drive a wedge between us and God by feeding us lies and insecurity around the singleness. So God
Mhm.
offers us truth to free us from those lies and practical tools to grow our joy daily. Do you have any of those tools that you use to grow your joy?
Yeah, some of my favorites from that I've been using most recently are with gratitude. I found I needed a really practical way to be able to focus myself on that. So I started journaling 3 wins each day. And so that helped me. Usually when people say be grateful, I think, yes, you know, I've got my health, I've got my home, I've got my family, but I was struggling to get off that track and it
Right,
became
right.
quite repetitive and boring. But journaling 3 wins a day made me really thankful for the little things and recognizing how much joy had been happening in each day. And I found that incredibly helpful. And gratitude is one of the major themes when you look at what the Bible says about joy. That's
Mhm.
something that really comes up a lot. So that's been really powerful for me lately.
Yeah, it's super easy for some reason to focus on the negative and
hmm
not every night just think, okay, what wonderful happened today? Because usually you're like, oh my gosh, this is what happened today, instead of let's figure out what good happened.
hmm
So
Yeah,
that's great.
very much.
In the book, this was one of my favorite things. You said you had 10 things I'm buying on repeat. And you said,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not actually buying any of these things, but I thought they were all great. A girl squad. I mean, we all need that, right? I,
Everybody needs
yeah. And then interesting housemates, I think is great. I love this complete autonomy over what I'm eating for dinner. So good.
it.
You don't have to ask, buddy. It's great.
That's people underappreciate that one. It's a big deal.
Yeah. And then I love this one because my daughter, she's 29, she's single. You had vacations with friends, and she does that so often, and she's having the
hmm
time of her life. So
Yeah,
that's,
they're wonderful. And it's something my married friends always tell me that they're jealous of because
yep,
their husbands and them can't agree on where to go. And so I thought, well, this is one thing I'm going to appreciate about my singleness.
for sure. And then you had total anti mode, which you can be the best aunt ever, right?
hmm Yeah, it's great. I've got so much time to pour into those kids.
And then spontaneous weekends, so much
hmm
fun. And here's a big one, a bathroom to yourself.
Yes.
And then the chance to do some of your life by yourself. I mean, these are all great qualities that about singleness that I hope people will grab onto and not just focus on being alone.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause it would be,
Very
it's just so easy. Wearing very unflattering baggy clothes at home.
much. Yes.
You can go to events that matter to you. You never have to endure sports, and you have the time to write books.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ladies, I hope you're grabbing onto all of these things because it sounds amazing. Now, I will say I've been married 31 years, so I'm just putting that out there. I'm not saying I want to be. And then the other thing that I really enjoyed in the book, there were many things, but I could talk for hours, but we don't have that time. But you were talking about what your mom says, and that's all you need to focus on is the next 24 hours when things get tough or all in you're worried about things that are going to be all you have to worry about is the next 24 hours. That is amazing advice.
Mm-hmm. It is. She's a wise lady.
Very much so. And how do you take that? Like, so what is she telling you that for? Are you just for anything? You know what I'm saying? Like, give me an idea of or example why she would tell you that.
Yeah, look, I think so much when singleness gets hard, it's because we're looking beyond the next 24 hours. We're looking long term, we're seeing tough things that may or may not happen in the future, and we're focusing on them and we're getting bummed out about things not going the way that we want. And the thing is, I mean, Jesus said in Matthew 6 that not to focus on tomorrow's worries. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And that's really what she is refocusing me on because God gives us what we need each day, but He doesn't give us what I need tomorrow, today. It's each day because He wants us to keep coming back to Him. If we could load up on 80 years worth of
Mm.
resources from God, we
Mhm.
probably would up front, and then we'd be like, peace out, God, see you
Yeah.
in eternity. So
And
he
then,
made it a daily thing, like the manna
right.
when he led the Israelites through the desert. They had to come out each day and gather that up because he wants us to remember that we're dependent on him, not ourselves. And so when we're looking beyond 24 hours, really we're shifting our focus from him to ourselves and our lack of resources to get through those possible future challenges. And we shouldn't be. That's not our job. Our job is to come back to him each day and rely on him.
Right. And that's advice for everybody. That's a
Hmm.
everybody advice.
It
24
is.
hours.
Hmm.
That is
That
good advice. So if you had like one single thing that you wanted to take readers that you want readers to take away from this book, what would that be?
Mhm. I would love single women after this book to be faithfully single but scandalously confident.
Hmm.
And do that. You're standing on the promises of what God says about you, what He says about your hope and your future, and you're shutting out any, lies or insecurities from the enemy. And I think that's so important. God wants an army full of warriors, not victims. And
Hmm.
I see so many single women ashamed of their singleness.
Hmm.
And I just don't see anything in the Bible that says that that's how we should be acting about this. And so I'm just so keen to see freedom and confidence for these single women. And even if the plan wasn't your first choice, pride in the fact that God has a plan for you. It's such an unbelievable honor. And so I would rather focus on appreciating that than trying to rewrite it the way that I think it should go.
Right, because he has the perfect plan.
Hmm.
And we always have to remember that. So as a married person and I have single friends, I'm going to assume that my single friends don't always want to be like fixed up and don't like what give me some advice as a married person for my single friends.
Yeah. Look, some people don't want to be, but some people really do. So I think it's asking the question. Sometimes maybe your singles really just want a chance actually to debrief and to talk about it, but they're not sure that their married friends want to talk about that because they're in such a different place. And
Hmm.
so I think reaching out and maybe making that first step and letting your single friend know that this is something that they can talk about and finding out what their preferences are. I've had different people ask me like, "Hey, do you want me to introduce you to someone?" And I'm like, "Yes, I would like to meet someone. So if you can help with that, that would be great." But there's
Yeah.
other people who are like, "No, I'm happy how I am and I don't want anything like that." And so I think just reaching out and the fact that you reach out, it builds that extra connection. It lets that person know, "Hey, I care about you. I'm in your corner. You're an important part of my community." And that sense of belonging is really important for singles because we often don't have immediate family living in our house or sometimes even in our city. I'm the only person in my family who lives in this city, and so my community around me is especially important to me.
That's wonderful. So, where can listeners find? Let me say the name of it again. So, the author is Jessica Kate. The name of the
Mhm.
book is Why Are All of My Boyfriends Fictional? Joy for the Relationally Challenged. Where can listeners find the book?
Listeners can find it, look, basically all good bookstores, but if you head to jessicakatewriting.com, then you will find a link to it from my website as well as lots of other fun goodies I have on there for you all.
Oh, that's wonderful. Say it again. Say the website again.
Yeah, it's jessicakatewriting.com.
Great. I'll make sure that's on all of the information. Jessica, thank you so much. You're so much fun. You're absolutely adorable. I love you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been
And
so fun.
thank you so much for putting the time in to write a book that there aren't a lot of them out there for this, for Christian single women and bringing joy to them.
Thank you. I'm so glad that I got to be a part of it.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Authors Amplified. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and subscribe for more incredible authors next time.